All right. Usually it takes much longer to initialize and start the broadcast, but it looks like went pretty quick this time. Hello, everyone. My name is Perry. This is Thomas. This is the third part in a several part series where I am interviewing my friends um, for the sake of conversation, the sake of therapy, and for motives that I won't disclose until in the foreseeable future. Thomas and I have days, weeks, months worth of time in conversation with each other. He was really the first peer of mine to kind of take me on this journey, this philosophical esque journey that I've been on. Huge influence. Couldn't be more grateful. Um, a teacher. Uh, he has been able to talk to some of the greatest minds. Lawrence Krauss being one of them. I pulled up your channel because I wanted to list off all of them.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
Kane,
Everybody
Scott Barry
from
Kaufman, John
yeah,
Vervecki, Donald
yeah,
Hoffman. I mean, holy
yeah,
crap.
yeah,
Um, Peter Adamson. I remember that
yeah.
discussion that we had with him.
That's right.
That was good. That was me, you, and Don Don. And
Yep,
maybe someone else that were talking to him. That was a good one.
it was. It was.
So just like the last two interviews, I have no questions planned. I almost don't want to go so much into philosophy, even though likely that's where it will end up. I want to know some of the things that interest you so greatly in life, such as music. We'll talk about music because I don't really know that much about your relationship with music, yet I know it is a huge part of your life. Um, I want to talk about morality,
Mm.
and I mean, you and I know each other's psyche when it comes to language, so that might not even be worth it. So let's start with music.
Okay. What you want to know?
It's a good question. It's a good question.
No, I mean I can say
Yeah, well, I mean, how does it? What? How crucial has it been in your well-being? Maybe we could take
oh
as
oh God.
yeah.
Since my age of 5 years old, listening to Michael Jackson and Alice in Chains and Nirvana and Radiohead and all that kind of stuff when I was that young, and then growing up with it and just getting into like the underground of music. Um, my relationship with it is basically it saved me all the years that I wasn't medicated. Well, I was medicated with marijuana, but I wasn't actually properly medicated. I was using music as like my own ethos, my own the spirit of, if the spirit, quote unquote. I mean, it was my spirit animal. You know what I mean? It,
You
it
know, I
helped
like
me.
that language. I like
Yeah,
so yeah.
I'm fine with using spirit. I
I
just I just
understand.
know to
Yeah.
some people they're like, you mean magical? No, not fucking
The
magical.
hard
Like,
atheist slamming their hand on the table.
yeah, magical.
999.
Nine. No, but I mean, like, if I didn't have music, I don't know where I would be today. I don't know if I'd be dead or not. I might be dead, honestly.
Yep.
Music has saved me.
So
And, you know, it's a big part.
death could be another conversation that we have at the end. You and I
Yeah,
in the pregame lobby, we're talking about death, which
yeah,
and that will be interesting. Okay, I love Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Radiohead. Um,
yeah. That's all the early '90s grunge and indie rock that came from the '80s. So like, music began to solidify in the '90s a lot more than it had been in any other years, because recording equipment was getting a lot better to where it was cheaper, to where
mm,
you didn't have to have a record label to make an album and things like that, and music was sounding better. So like, I got to grow up right at the prime time of that, where music was
mm.
exploding. Um, And so I was like 5 years old in 91, 92, 91, I think. So that, I specifically remember jumping up and down on my bed listening to Michael Jackson. And then, like, when I was 7, 8 years old, I know my sister's friends showed me some really awesome death metal. I don't remember if it was Cynic or Pestilence or whoever it was. I'm sure if I really tried to remember, I could. But uh, yeah, I was just inundated with it my entire life. Music
You
has always
grew
been.
up with it. It was like just it's part of your chemistry now. It's such a developing part of your life, right?
It's a
Um,
weird thing to wake up and want to hear music every day. Like, I can't describe that feeling to other people.
that is very interesting. I mean, I've only had a few phases in my life really where I have that, where I'm excited to wake up and I look forward to something rather than, oh, dreading the day. You know, you wake up for school at 6:45 every day and you just kind of, I at least got this habit of kind of dreading waking up but there were temporary circumstances where, so I can only somewhat relate to that. Extremely, I mean, obviously it is ineffable in a sense. Compare and contrast that when you were 5 years old listening to those groups to now in the genre of music, how it relates, how it differs, things that maybe
Well,
have
like,
stayed the same or not.
obviously in 1990, there wasn't any other pop music really besides Michael Jackson that
Okay.
existed. I mean,
Yeah.
there was things like New Kids on the Block, but I mean, there were only a few huge pop artists
It was more
in the
rock.
90s. Who's that?
Well, it was more rock oriented.
It was during
Yeah.
that time. The pop that was, Michael Jackson was the beginning of the huge pop star. Uh,
Because I mean, nowadays you listen to a lot of metal, and
yeah, I do. I
I
do,
mean,
and and I like metal with singing vocals. Probably a lot of due to the reasons because I like Michael Jackson a lot, or I used to.
oh,
Um,
that's a good point.
that I mean, I love all kinds of vocals, but the reason, if we were to break my listening up into a pie chart over the last 20 years, metal would probably be about 35% of it,
Okay, that's a good chunk.
and then the rest would be like electronic, hip hop, all the main genres, rock, progressive rock, stuff like that. The main, and then all the subgenres thereof. But like, if you want to compare and contrast, it's really hard because today there is literally, uh, I don't know, hundreds of albums coming out every day.
It's just impossible to keep up with and know kind
It
of like
is,
the
and
status
I
quo of
used to
certain.
try. I used to try for years and years and years. I would listen to as much music as I could possibly get into my brain, and I would find diamonds in the rough. But to be honest with you, the search is tiring, and you don't find enough of those diamonds.
It's like you're searching for that high again, almost.
Yep.
And it's
Yeah,
just so
that's
hard
right.
when there's so many rocks amongst the diamonds, and it's
Yep.
um, similar to language. A lot of these genres probably overlap in certain ways too. So when you say
Yes.
things like, or when I say things like it's rock oriented, and then you mention there's pop, and then there's like the EDM or the electronic that also overlaps, but
Yep. Yep.
so it's a very
It's
pluralistic.
hard. It really is just like a taxonomy. I mean, if you think of rock, then you can take a little tab down. Make a little tab in your mind, have a little
Exactly,
spreadsheet,
it's good
and
heuristic.
say progressive rock, art rock, pop rock, and
Psychedelic
these things
rock.
become more easily understandable. You know what I
Yep.
mean? They become indie pop. There's all kinds of different kinds, but today is just there's so much music, and there's so much good music too, which is weird. Here's the funny thing: back in like 2006 to like 2016, the underground seemed to be putting out a lot more albums of high quality. Nowadays, the high quality is still there, it's just not as numerous, and I don't know why that is.
I bet it's because similar to how when you were 5 and there was new technology and you didn't have to go to the studio and do a take or whatever,
Yeah.
technology has gotten better so we could produce more music. Some of it, I guess, is inevitably going to sound the same. I mean, there's so many factors that can go into it as to why it's becoming more dull. I would imagine perhaps just the sheer amount of music out there. I mean, I see you on Spotify every day.
Yeah.
Uh, are you like, are you actively kind of looking for that diamond often, or are you kind of just passively like just letting it come to you? Maybe something new pops up. How do you kind of navigate that?
I used to actively look for the diamonds, but now I just use Rate Your Music, which is the music Wikipedia,
I
if
remember you
everybody
bringing
wants
up
to
that.
know.
Yep.
I just use that and the charts to give me a good idea of what like maybe the top 400 are, and then from those I can discern what the best are. Once you start getting past the sixth and seventh pages, you're in the territory of not very good stuff. You know what I mean? And I use that as a gauge to let me understand what most people are voting as the highest. That doesn't determine what the best is though, because not everybody likes the same genres. So on Rate Your Music, you can like separate it by people who are following you and stuff like that. Have these like custom charts. But what
It's
was
like
your
a,
question? I lost your
well,
question.
that kind of reminds me, it's like an internet kind of geist where
Yeah,
you kind of manipulate the people who you follow manipulates kind of what music you're going to end up listening to based on a voting scale.
yeah.
My question was, how do you navigate usually if it's more of an active or a
Yeah.
passive?
It's
And
a
that, you know,
passive thing now.
that answered it. Yeah.
It's a passive thing now. Yeah, for sure.
Because it is the rate your music thing that's kind of doing the algorithm, at least a big part of it.
Yeah, it's doing the work for me. And of course, I can go to my music discords, or I could go to Last FM, which is another place that has a lot of music lovers that have the same interest as, you know, anyway,
my,
um,
my dad, who's much less technological than us, does the same thing. He says that he trains his Pandora. Like he trains it in order to give him certain songs that he knows that he's going to like. And it's kind of the same essence. You
yeah,
train the algorithm of whatever
yeah,
platform you're using.
yeah, yeah. Spotify has it, Pandora has it, Last FM has it. They all have some kind of algorithm that's going to be used uh, to gather that data. But yeah, I mainly just use Rate Your Music charts, and I also check the blogs, check the discords to see if anybody's. Usually, I use the discords for jazz because jazz isn't very represented on Rate Your Music anymore because there's so few releases. So I'll go to
mhm.
Discord and talk to my jazz friends, and they'll give me the down low on what's come out recently and shit like that. But
You're in so deep. Like you have like a special group of friends for your jazz, and then when the
I mean, I
or
have
the internet.
there's a Discord I'm a member of called the Images and Words Discord. It's a prog rock, progressive, prog rock, prog metal uh, group where you can talk about this with other people, and I'm in there a lot in the text chats and stuff talking about
Nice,
albums and shit.
nice.
So that's why I'm usually not in the text chats on Penguin.
Shoot, I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask you something. Oh yeah, have you ever played an instrument?
Yes,
What?
I played piano. I don't remember from what age. I think I stopped when I was around like 11, maybe somewhere around there. But a couple years, maybe a
Could
few
you still
years.
hop
I
on the
don't remember.
keys and play something?
Not really. No.
No.
I mean, I have
Yeah.
no dexterity about it. I don't remember
Gotcha.
what notes they are or anything. You know, I would have to retrain my body to play again.
Yep.
It's been since I've been 11 or 12, so there's no way. But I consider myself a musician without an instrument. Now,
Interesting.
I need to learn more about audio engineering, which I will from one of our friends named Scott, and I want to learn more about like the tech, the gear that bands use. You know what I mean? That would be
Hmm.
those two things. I can learn more about that. I need to
And
if I'm.
would you want to make music through those means of that kind of hardware technology?
I've asked myself that question a lot because I love music so much. And there was something I realized when I was like 18, 17, 18. I was like, I am way more interested in what other people are making than what I can make. I don't know why I came to that realization. I just realized that I cared more about the treasure hunt and the going to see people in concert and letting that be a super awesome experience for me, rather than having a job as a musician. You know what I mean? I just couldn't imagine myself doing that.
It reminds me of this idea that I've had lately, which is objectifying yourself and subjectifying yourself. It
Okay.
seems as though with that language, the way you described it, you would be objectifying yourself if you were like having to study the music, make the music, listen to it, scratch it, or like it
Yep.
becomes a chore and an objective that you have to do,
Right.
versus just subjectively being pleased by the passive sounds that are coming in just that subjective experience that you have. That's what you want to aim for, is that subjectivity rather than, and this is within the gym, when you're eating. I mean, are you like counting all of your calories down to the kilocalorie, very specific, and I have to have
When I
this
was
many?
working out, I was counting calories, but of course not anymore. I'm like
Exactly.
triple chin over here.
the and the goal, in my opinion, is you have to objectify yourself in the beginning to learn, okay, well, I roughly eat about 600 calories here, blah blah blah. But the
Right.
goal is it for so it becomes second nature and just the purely subjective experience. I'm not anxious about, oh my god, I have to hit this weight or this number in this amount of time. So subjectivity versus objectivity, and I think you describing you not wanting to make music for that reason makes a lot of sense, honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
It allows me to still get that spirit animal feeling from it. You know what I mean? It
there
allows
it
me to
is.
still,
Yes.
you
Oh,
know, and I don't mind
perfect.
understanding notes and chords and music theory and audio engineering and all of that. That's great. I want to know how the music is made. I just don't want to do it. A little bit of it is laziness, obviously, because there's other things I'm interested in. But the other part is I don't want it to lose what it gives me already. I don't want to somehow stumble into the knowledge and then be like, fuck, I wish I didn't know.
Yes,
You
I
know what I
know
mean?
exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So I
Oh my
really
god.
don't want to be able to tell if some of the most technical bands that I listen to, I don't want to be able to listen to one note and be like, he's in C minor right there, and it's this pitch at this octave.
Yep.
I don't want to be able to do that because then I'm just going to get obsessive about it. I can't. I've got to leave something alone in my life and not be obsessed about it. I guess
That's
it's
yeah, that's the bad part of the objectivity of it. You lose kind of the spirit animal. I love how you brought that up
yeah.
again because it's so synonymous to what I'm trying to explain with subjectivity.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
God, well, I
I
mean,
mean,
what
I can talk
else?
for hours
Well,
about
yes,
music.
please. I mean, I can only give you certain questions based on my limited knowledge of. I mean,
So
just tell me what you think I would want to know.
this okay. So just for me, just kind of talking this out loud. In music, I am looking for like esoteric emotions formed by combining like dissonance and melody and all this kind of stuff into some kind of waterfall or wall of sound. I like complexly performed songwriting. I like hearing songwriting in the forms of like cadence and denouement, different ways of writing songs. I like lush and heavily layered atmospheres. Um,
What does lush mean?
so lush in terms of music means very dense and very reverb heavy. Usually, sometimes the reverb is very close to the sound, and sometimes it washes really like in long frequencies, like wah 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 wah. But sometimes it's just like fuzz on top of the guitar note. Does that sound right?
Kind of like,
Yeah.
I guess, just to use contrasting long, it's just short waves, more or
Well,
less.
little bit like see a band like Era, the metalcore band Era.
Yeah,
They're
you
very
showed me them.
lush. Yeah, they're very lush because they use a lot of one. They use a very digital type of production where they can have this overall like noisiness to it, like where the cymbals and the guitar work and the bass and everything have this like layer of fuzz over the whole thing that just sounds like ethereal. The lead guitar work, the picks and the plucks and all the shiny stuff in the background just makes it sound lush. Makes it's a heavily layered sonic atmosphere. Does that make sense?
Do you think that that is? that was the intent of Era, or
Yes.
do you think just as a consequence from them playing,
Yeah,
that's something that you picked up?
you can't not. I mean, they could have produced that in a way to completely ruin the lushness of it. They had to do that very obviously, and they very much knew
Purposefully?
what they were doing. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So, and that's why I like them so much. You know, I like the odd time signatures. I like the polyrhythms and all the weird syncopations, all the time stuff. You know, like if metal is more jazz oriented, especially in terms of bridges and things like that, I'll usually like it more than. It really depends on the whole package. That's the thing. I like intensity. I want the intensity to create a form of psychedelia for myself so that I can meditate to it. And that only comes to me in the most technical, well written, heaviest shit that I can find, you know? And it's just, that's just natural to me. I don't know how, you know,
Has it been like that for a while, or is that something that's kind of adapted over
more than
time?
2 decades. It's been
Okay.
that way since I was in high school. Yeah. Since I was maybe like 20, you know, 19, 20. I was just looking to get psychedelically tranced out by any heavy music that I was listening to, and then you know, stuff today is so lush, it's ridiculous. Like there's so many layers in most of the music that I listen to today that it's hard to keep track of them all. I mean, there's Between the Buried Me, which a lot of people who will watch this will probably know them. They have sometimes like 15 and 16 layers going on, you know, and
And if
it's
you're not careful, you might miss it. Like,
you'll miss it and get lost and it'll sound like static when really it's like a cacophony of excellence. It's hard to describe, but
there's no way that I would be able to pick that up, for example. Like,
no, well, if you listen to it, you know, like they have a song that's called Extremophile Elite. It's 9 minutes and 56 seconds long, something like that. It's an amazing song, but some of the heavier parts, especially while he's doing the heavy vocals, are really complex, and it might just sound like they're playing notes at random if you didn't really pay attention
right,
and listen to the song a few times. You know what I mean?
analogous to how I think we use random as philosophers. It's really just we don't know what's actually going on, and there's some, well, not purpose, but there's a better explanation at least behind it. You mentioned kind of like this transcending feeling. I was either talking to you and or Don Don, where I love it when my mind is blown by something that I just haven't heard and I just haven't thought of, but I was able to now connect something maybe in a neuronal way, who knows, synaptical way. No, but I have a similar, probably not the same exactly, but it's akin. It's similar to I think what you're trying to describe there. Um, it's just a sense of amazement and like wow, or it's ineffable. I mean, I think
No, what you describe is correct.
yeah,
You're right. That's the same feeling. It's goosebumps on your skin. It's the feeling of some like when I hear music that I absolutely love. It feels like somebody gets me, and it feels like it takes me to the places where I want to go mentally. And it's a glorious feeling. And there's only so many albums that can do that for me. Of the tens of thousands I've heard. So
I mean it is. I guess I mean you would know more than this in a psychological aspect maybe, but like it's almost like it's a drug. And there's
yeah,
these
there's a reward system
behaviors.
for
Yeah,
it.
I mean there's these behaviors that we can practice. I mean, it could be
music
something so
directly
simple
redu-
like
Music directly reduces stress. It can affect the serotonin and dopamine receptors. It can affect
there you go.
norepinephrine, epinephrine, GABA. I imagine it could even affect your hormones, like by proxy. You know, so I mean, music can definitely affect you in those ways.
Even if it's not a direct effect, if I
Yes,
think that's what you mean by saying by proxy. Yeah, I mean,
yes, not
if
yeah,
it affects your,
epiphenomenally. Yeah,
yes, it's gonna inevitably. What is it? The butterfly effect, even in a way. I mean,
yeah.
something's
Non
gonna change, or maybe that's not the right one, but
is it nonlinear causality? Is that what you're
something
thinking of?
like that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's it's hard to give what I have about the feeling that transcendental feeling that I have about music to somebody else. I've met so many people in my life who are like, I love music. I'm so into music. And I try to get them into music. And it's like, and not just metal, but all kinds of things. And it's like, there's so much pushback because they aren't used to listening to things that challenge them or that don't sound, poppy enough for them or whatever. And I get so much of that. I have not found someone except on maybe that Images and Words Discord and maybe the Rate Your Music website. I haven't found many people who are as obsessed about listening to music as I am. Like, Peter and Scott, they're obsessed about music, but they're not as obsessed about sitting down and taking in full albums at a time and really trying to splice out what do they mean here, what was this sound meaning to take me into the void, or are we traveling through space, or you know I get into the whole lot of it. I lose myself.
And I mean, there's going to be a wide range of ways that you can enjoy music, of course. So, Scott's is going to be different than Peter's, is going to be different than mine, is going to be different than yours.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so let's take a 20-year-old who listens to rap and hip hop and maybe like some whatever would be played on the radio kind of thing. I mean,
Hard rock stuff.
how would you not, I mean, maybe. I mean, sure, just how
Oh,
would
just
you
anything on the radio. I got you. I got you.
how would you
Got you.
try to like what would you suggest to them to try and get them to this point that you're trying to describe, this transcending kind of feeling?
You have to start within their genre. You have to find their subgenre by listening to them and letting them tell you what their favorite stuff is and hearing it. And if you have training like me in it, then you can be like, okay, you like these subgenres of hip hop. Let's start listening to more types of that. And if I can get them into thinking about weird and experimental stuff in hip hop, or maybe things that they didn't originally like, I can move those pins outward to other genres. That's the best way that I've been able to do it with people.
I mean, it's just crazy to think of the possible things that like the possible avenues that there are to get to that point. There's just so many different songs.
I mean, I could name 100 hip hop artists right now that are better than anybody in the pop mainstream.
Yeah.
It would take me a minute. I'd have to go look up some names, but yeah, I could name 100. So there's so much music out there. It's embarrassingly large amount.
Well, okay, so maybe let's try and tie this into morality.
Sure, go ahead.
Um, it obviously increases your well-being, right?
Yes, yes.
And maybe we can even take the past question, how would you try and help a person who may be not experiencing the best well-being? I mean, it sounds like it's just a skill that you have that the layman probably couldn't. Being able to take someone through a journey to get them to a point where it would therefore increase their well-being. I mean, first of all, that's
I
such a
would have to
hard
be able to
task.
give. Yes,
Yeah.
I would have to be able to give my knowledge, my self-purported knowledge of my understanding and acceptance of things, and also my understanding and education and training in psychology, and
I was
also
going to say that
my
too. Yep.
my my social skills. I would have to give all that to somebody in order for them to be. You get what I'm saying? Like I
I
don't know how
figured
we
you. I
trans.
figured. I figured you were going to bring up psychology. I mean, I was going to bring up
Yeah,
psychology. You
yeah.
have, a great amount of techne in regards to psychology, not only from your studies, but surely from your own experience. As
That's where I get a lot of it from. Yeah,
any good thinker references their own psychological circumstances.
yeah.
It it almost sounds patronizing saying that you take someone through like a therapy, like in order to help them with their well being. But I think that that's such an important step. Yet it seems as though people get so defensive Do you see
Yes,
that often with people where they
yes,
get defensive and
yes. It's out of fear. It's out of insecurity. Sometimes it's the lack of security of self. Sometimes it's a fear of the social shame or situation. It can be a many. It can be a numerous of factor, but usually it falls down to some form of social judgment.
what is a good way to hedge that?
Mm, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know.
What if I put on my continental German idealist hat and said rationality? What would you respond to that?
Can we make a completely subjective logical argumentation about it? Sure.
What about intersubjective logical argumentation?
Yeah, if other people exist as rational agents that are separate from us, there is there is an intersubjective space. I
Even
don't.
even if there's not, doesn't it seem like it?
Yes.
And is that seeming strong enough of a platform in order to do something like hedge the fears and insecurities and social anxieties that a person may have and create defense mechanisms from?
I hadn't thought about it that way. That's say that last part again. You said.
So I'm going to say the whole thing again.
Yeah.
That seeming that there is this intersubjective space, do you think that that's a strong enough foundation in order to hedge those things that you mentioned, the fears and insecurities that
Oh,
may
yeah.
create these defense
Well,
mechanisms?
the problem is that our intuitions create some of those fears and insecurities about the self for no reason. They're called cognitive distortions. They're not like an error in judgment, like a cognitive bias. They're more like an error in thinking that changes your mood more negatively towards yourself. So it's like it's bad self talk, basically, if you want to break it down to as simple as you can get.
Can we be
Um,
aware of that little phenomenon that
yeah,
you just
you
described?
can be metacognizant of that if you take the time to think of the fact that you are like catastrophizing is a cognitive distortion. It's basically assuming the worst in every possible situation.
Yeah,
And
okay.
once you start doing that, especially if you're an obsessive person, it never ends. So that can lead. That's usually an illogical thought that leads to a negative mood. And yeah, how do you get cognitive distortions out of people? Lots of training, lots of therapy, lots of what I've done, the self work, the work about self awareness and reflection, and the constitution of the self, the merging of the personality and the imagination, and all of these compartmentalized modules into this one thing, the self, the Thomas Panther. You know what I mean? This something that I can't explain, that you actually don't even know if you believe is real.
I can't, right.
I
I mean,
think I
not
think I
100%.
have this. I
Yeah.
think and feel as though I have this thing that is myself, but I can't describe it to you. It's as unfalsifiable as pretty much anything can be right now because we don't have the neural correlates for what I'm talking about.
Until we can perform telekinesis.
Yeah, until we get telepathy.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what, yeah.
telepathy.
Telekinesis is picking shit
The
up and
moving
moving it
shit up.
around.
Yeah,
Yeah,
moving shit.
okay. Yep. Uh, do you think that being metacognizant and aware of those things gives us more of an ability to be able to change it? To
Yes.
change, yes, the behavior that
Yeah,
leads
I
to it.
mean, it may all be determined. Who cares? But I mean, yes, we do have the ability to change that. I think. I think we do have the ability to change that.
Deter-
Do I know
determinism
for a fact? No, but
determinism is another one where
yeah,
it's like it seems like I have the freedom to ask you certain questions about determinism and freedom. So
that's the problem. Is that you may have not. Even me
yeah.
saying you may have not, what could have been determined by all the previous neuronal firings and thing. What I had to eat yesterday, and all these causal links that are infinite that go back to the Big Bang. Uh,
I wonder if because I mean I have had negative emotions from certain types of thinking of that.
yep.
Do you think that's a cognitive distortion of mine?
Um, Might be a new one. It's not one that I've, you know, uh,
My well-being being negatively affected by me cognizantly thinking that I may not have cognizance, that it may just
no,
all be
no.
determined.
That's it's just extreme skepticism. You are leaning more towards skepticism and away from. I guess you would have to say rationalism slash empiricism.
Yeah, we
You
can.
know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yep.
The two combined, however you want to, whatever. You're leaning more into the skeptical. Does that mean you're wrong? No, it doesn't. It absolutely does not mean you're wrong. The problem is you can't know if you're correct, right?
Until
So
telepathy.
yeah, until telepathy. Um, See, morality. When you ask me about, I am the best and worst person to talk to about morality, and the reason why I say I'm good at it is because I don't I don't really care about academic morality. We that's the bad part, is that I do know enough to be dangerous in um, talking about this with other philosophers. But the good part is that I just follow my natural moral foundations from my genetics and from my upbringing. It's just natural to me to love people, or to try to love people. It's natural to me to be kind and patient and try to be kind and patient. It's natural to me to want egalitarianism and well-being to be spread to as many people as I can, even the worst among us. Because that makes society better in general. So these moral axioms, you can call them whatever you want, moral maxims, moral axiom. They would only be an axiom if I had some kind of formal system set up, but I don't. So they're moral axioms, and I just follow them. But we can
And
definitely get into
that
the weeds on those if we have to.
that makes sense because, for example, my system, though I'd hesitate calling it formal, is probably more formal than yours. You're saying you have this kind of natural, and the thing, I mean, you're lucky. This is why this worries me, and I'll tell you why. You're lucky because I think you are a very high-minded person where you can go to those natural instincts, intuitions, and not have a problem because you're not like a raper, you're not a killer, you don't do a bunch of shit. But there are some people out there who, if they were abide to that, what you're describing, their natural intuitions, they
I
pickpocket,
know.
they'll take a few candy bars from the gas station,
No.
they'll kill a kid, they'll
Yeah.
run over a squirrel on purpose on the road because they just want to kill it.
This is
And
where the question comes in, Thomas. Are you a moral nihilist?
that is definitely one of the avenues that we can go down. Absolutely. And how would you describe that, if yes or no to whatever that question is?
I struggle with that every single day. Um, my axioms are still as they are, but moral nihilism, from my point of view, well, not just from my point of view, but from most of online's point of view, is that there is no meaning to the terms good and evil, and there is no ontology to good and evil. That doesn't exist. It is us creating things. The difference between moral nihilism and moral relativism is that relativism still believes that some sentences can be true or false. It's just based on the culture or the individual. Nihilism is saying it doesn't exist at all, and it's hard to make an argument against that, in my opinion.
On to lot. Uh-oh. Thomas might have froze. We'll give it a sec. We'll give it a sec. Usually it takes a few minutes. I agree 100% with Thomas's usage of that word nihilism, where it doesn't ontologically exist. But I think most people who call themselves nihilists are actually what Thomas said in the latter, a moral relativist, where there are these certain moral truths, and they can be true depending on the culture, how we intersubjectively. Oh, he's back. No worries. I was
I'm,
filling in the time. So
I'm on my phone's internet, so hopefully this works out for a little bit, and then I'll have to get back on my regular internet.
you're chilling,
Uh,
dude.
Damn it! Sorry about that.
So what I said was in responding to the audience without you here, I said, I agree completely with your usage of nihilism there. But some people who call themselves nihilist, I think, are actually moral relativists, as you said, where
Yeah,
the culture, it is these moral statements are true, determining dependent on the culture that says whether or not they are true intersubjectively.
yeah. Moral nihilism is saying good and evil don't exist, so they can't be true or false. That's all it's saying.
So, oh, okay. Well, here's a thought that I just had. Would that mean, could I say to the nihilist then, are things only true or false if they exist ontologically? Because if you're saying it can't be true or false because they don't exist, would that mean that things could only be true or false if they exist ontologically
That's a good question.
for the nihilist?
Um, we're talking about to an ontological nihilist, of course, they could say some crazy shit,
Okay.
but
Yes.
a moral
Okay.
nihilist might not make any ontological claims. They'll make a moral ontological claim. They'll say the nature of these morals is ambiguous or doesn't exist, but they're not
Gotcha.
making an actual like overall ontological claim about you know
I hear you. You know,
yeah
that makes sense. And I mean, maybe I'm just reiterating something that I experienced where certain baggage is now brought upon when you use nihilism. Maybe now you're an epistemic nihilist and an ontological nihilist because of the fact that you call yourself a moral. I mean, but are you really? I mean, I think that this term
I don't know.
is brings a lot of baggage that some people go all the way with. Like they're just Toto nihilist, you know, an omni nihilist, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, I could fall completely into moral nihilism and deny my nature and my intuition and just be like, whatever I want to do is what I want to do. But I mean, that's not moral nihilism doesn't say you should do whatever you want to do. Obviously,
Right.
a moral nihilist can still follow like the rules of the United States and like, in the court of law or something. But I struggle with it every day because I feel like I am a person who wants to give love and get loved. And I want to be close to people like family. And I try to tell myself, yes, there is such a thing as good and there is such a thing as evil, because the good man who does nothing allows evil to thrive.
Damn it. Damn it. He was about to cook. Oh, he's back.
I'm about to break this phone. This phone's about to get thrown across the
I mean, yeah. No, it's really no worries, dude. Oh man, it's happening again. No. Thomas, come back. Ah. Thomas, come back. Oh shoot.
room. I know. We're having an intermittent discussion here.
I mean, we're
So I
letting it all kind of set in. You know,
yeah,
maybe
letting it sit in.
this is
What was I
God.
say? What was I going on about? What
Yeah, you were literally about to cook on something that you struggle with nihilism, but you
Yes.
have this
So I
love and
want
you
to
want to be
believe
loved. Like,
I want to be loved and I want to give love and I have all these natural inclinations to do these things, but I fight with the feeling of moral nihilism because logically, if this is just atoms in the void, then good and evil are just whatever anybody wants them to be. However, I would fight against a psychopath that would kill a child. So
absolutely.
why do I think about the ideas of moral nihilism as being a logical conclusion, but I fight that very nature of myself to say no, do not be this way.
I think that might be the rationality in you that I was trying to hint to as a continental German idealist earlier. Um, And that's why you can get away with having that natural intuition, because whether it was because you were indoctrinated by your culture or not, you are able to fight against the psychopath and do the naturally, what we would say, good things from a formal or informal system.
Yeah.
Um, my formal system is uh, act in a way as though it could be universal. So this is why I told you I have a problem with what you're describing, because not everyone is universally good in the same sense that we're describing of loving, wanting to be loved. There are the bad guys. Um,
I'm getting to cheat my way out of the system by saying, fuck it, I'm not going to play. But then there's others that are playing that might make my life really hard. And those others that are playing, I'm basically telling them, hey, I don't have a good grounds for telling you that you're good or evil.
at least you admit that, and that's
Yeah.
very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Um,
Remember, I struggle with this because
yeah,
my logical brain's like nihilism, and then my myself and my my emotional brain is like no. So
you're so cognizant of your biases. Like it's. Uh, do you? I mean, I feel like you have a lot of free will, aside from the physical aspects that you deal with, obviously, as an illness.
most of my adult life has been spent in either craziness, meditation, psyched out by music, or thinking about philosophy and psychology, like all day, every day, and death. Thinking about death constantly. That
We
all
should
this
talk
stuff
about that
adds
too.
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
we will. All
Yeah.
this stuff adds up into me just like obsessing over things, and that morality thing is the thing that gets because I go to that moral nihilism. I ignore all my training in morality and all the utilitarianism and deontology, and I just say fuck it, fuck all that stuff, right?
Hmm.
Uh, but then I can't. Yeah, but then I can't tell an ASPD that they're wrong for doing what they're doing. So
Right.
it's a problem. It's and a Christian would probably get me. They'd say, "Well, there's no moral center there. There's your problem." So
Yeah, but theirs is like,
yeah,
ugh.
I'm not saying I have a foundation. I'm just saying I'm just saying that if I were to place a bet on the foundation, it's going to be how I was raised and what genetics I have.
The issue is we have to inevitably consider by proxy the Christian morality, because ours is inevitably going to be intertwined with them. They're going to be behaving towards us in a certain way, depending on that religion or culture or whatever society. So I mean, hate, I can hate certain things within Christianity, but I need to consider that. Um, we all
There are
inevitably
things in
do. Yeah.
Christianity I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, I was done.
Um, there are things in Christianity that are good. There are some things that Jesus said that were good. There are some things that Paul said that were good. There are some things in the Old Testament that are good. But if a book says 1,000 good things and then it also says at the end, "Oh, you should also rape these children," what do we think about the book, right?
I would say from, I guess, to be charitable when I don't want to be defending the rapers. It depends on the net well-being. On if the thousand good things led to a million other lives saved than they would be otherwise, then maybe,
Sure. I'll
maybe.
take that extreme scenario. You might be right in
Yep.
that case.
But no,
Um,
you're definitely right about bringing that up.
yeah.
I wonder if death.
Yes.
Well, I wonder if Christians believe in Christianity because of their fear of death. That's one thing, but that's not what I want to ask. I wonder if death plays a role in the nihilistic. I deal with the nihilistic struggles too, by the way, but you're the one being interviewed here. So when you say your nihilistic struggles, I wonder if death plays a role in influencing that.
So I had when I was not medicated from 2010 to 2018. Uh, I had suicidal ideation because of my bipolar disorder, and it just lasted for years. I mean, I wanted to die. I can't give that feeling to somebody else, nor do I want someone else to have to ever feel that feeling. But I wanted to die, and that led me to wisdom in wanting to live. I can't explain that fully on this show. That would be hundreds of hours of conversation. But it's still the leftover remnants are every single action, Thomas, that you're going to do, anything that you plan for the future, anything that you plan even 3 days ahead, you could be dead. And then I think about, like, I think time like moves differently for me. Like 20 years ago, literally to me was like yesterday. So I think 20 years in the future, I'm like, I could be dead in 20 years. You know what I mean? Like, it's like nothing. It's like that. And I just think about death constantly. End result of all human action: death, 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 death. And it colors my perception of the world, because I still have passive suicidal ideation where I wish everything just wouldn't exist sometimes. I wish the world would explode, or, no pain or suffering, just everything blink out of existence. Uh, but I know that that is depression. I know that that is a cognitive distortion of mine. That's not actually what I believe.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm 27. I remember 17 years ago. 17 years from now, I could be dead, just as you said.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, if you really think about it, it's not that long ago. We live for a blip. We think it's so long. Oh, life is so long. No, it's not. No, it's not.
I had the thought the other day that I love when people feel entitled, and and this is so unfair of me too, but I think that people, when they're scared of death, as I am, feel entitled. It's like, if it's true, we came from these natural circumstances, we were once pond scum, you becoming something is, I mean, one, it's amazing just to even get 5 minutes of this. So rare. The probability, ask some mathematician, I don't know, but it's something in a few trillion, I don't know, infinity. And just and I think the Christian thinker, to also bring up Christianity again, I don't want to like biasly rag on them, but I almost feel as though they believe in this afterlife because they deserve it, because they think that they were a good person throughout their life.
Hmm. A lot of
Therefore, oh, I get
Christianity,
heaven forever. Like,
a lot of Christianity is martyrdom, because that is what the main martyr taught them to be.
that's true.
Jesus.
That's true. Yep.
Be a martyr. The more you suffer in my name, the more, I think it says, ye namesake shall be claimed in heaven, or it's, I don't remember, but it's, the more you suffer for me, the more you bitch and moan about being martyred, the more the Lord will love you. And it's a very weird thing. Jesus teaches some cool things, and then he teaches you how to be a martyr. So there you go. I don't know how to end that one.
What a just dangerous thing to actually take seriously and implement into your life. The more that I suffer, I mean, asceticism, we've talked about asceticism, I think could be used well in terms of well-being, you
Yeah,
know.
you don't have to suffer while being ascetic. You're just you're
True.
just not engaging in anything. You're trying to live a very neutral, extremely neutral life.
I wonder if there is a false dichotomy there that's, pragmatically true, where suffering and pleasure are two sides. The less that you suffer, the more pleasurable things become. The less
It's
pleasurable, the more you
it's the
suffer.
same thing with any duality. How would you know the contrasts?
Sure.
How would you
Yeah.
know one without the other? Right? What the hell
Right.
would pleasure be if suffering didn't exist? So that's just a metaphysical question, but uh, it
No.
does
Yeah.
seem as though they are entwined, because the more you suffer, and then when you get relief from that suffering, the
Yes.
better it tastes.
I
The
love the
better it tastes.
relief. The relief
Yeah,
is
the
amazing.
relief, and Don Don would tell us negative reinforcement, right? Um,
Oh
but
my
yeah, I
god.
mean, suffering. Here's another thing that Buddhists say. Stoics actually say this too. I don't know who said it first. Probably the Chinese. Uh, Pain is necessary. Suffering is optional. So
You
maybe
can
pleasure
put
and pain
yourself through that pain in order not to suffer voluntarily. So
is suffering a mental activity, or is it the actual activity of the pain itself?
it's mental.
Okay. So pleasure and pain is the duality we're talking about then.
That makes more sense. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
suffering is mental. What is the
Oh,
opposite of
okay.
suffering and mentality? Ecstasy?
Um, uh, okay. Interesting. Does that, so was I wrong or right about the voluntary part? Is that not necessary? The voluntary part?
No.
Okay. Then never mind. Then yeah, suffering, ecstasy, bliss, uh,
Yeah,
peace. I
bliss
don't
is a
know.
good one.
Something.
I
Yeah.
think that pretty much sums it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
bliss. So suffering and bliss. So, uh, I don't know why they make a dichotomy or excuse me, a duality between suffering and pleasure, but that's what they do in Buddhism. It's all about pleasure and suffering. Well, that's Taoism, pleasure and suffering and pleasure, and there's a little bit of each in each one in the yin yang symbol. The yin yang symbol is Taoist, right?
I think
I need to
the
learn my
Tao.
dharmic traditions aren't as good. Dao Su has been trying to teach me stuff about it. I need to.
If not, I'm pretty sure the Tao has similar.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know. Maybe they're. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure the yin yang is the Tao, which
Okay.
is good and evil, evil and good
Yeah.
kind of feeling.
Right.
Uh,
What
and
about?
I'm real careful about saying dichotomies, by the way.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's why I said what's the false dichotomy yet pragmatically true.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You did say
Yeah.
false. That's right.
So what would be the um false pragmatic dichotomy of suffering? I mean, I'm sorry. You said that we already went through that of
Yeah.
relief. What would it be pain again?
No, because pain would be the physical sensation, and pleasure would also be the physical sensation.
And then so what's relief then?
Relief is another mental, subjective construct.
And what do you think the pragmatic
It's a feeling. I mean,
duality?
it's a feeling, right? Wouldn't you say it's a feeling?
Yeah.
It's an actual feeling that.
Well, yeah, I don't know cuz I almost want to define it as like absence of pain almost and like assume my conclusion in my
Well,
definition,
you could
but
get
I don't even
relief.
know.
You could be in. You could break every bone in your body, be in the hospital, and get relief for your left arm and not your right arm. Right? We could go.
Oh.
We could go to the ridiculous
Hmm.
levels for this if we had to.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm not really sure what the opposite would
Yeah,
be of relief.
because it'd be a
Uh,
spectrum then. Because then once you
pre-
start getting your right arm relieved,
pressure, pressure,
okay,
pressure, or stress would be the opposite of relief, and both of those are mental as well. Mental pressure and mental stress, not actual pushing pressure.
I think stress is probably the best one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um.
it's weird.
Yeah. I try not to think of death too often. There's a healthy dose, I think. Um. It almost makes me want to be religious, even though I have just this intuition that it's probably not likely, but I almost just want to. I mean, again, this is the entitled part of me, I feel like.
This is why I would like to welcome you into the Church of Music. We don't even have to go into any other religions. We can just worship music.
Do you think that it's like a common human characteristic to want to worship something?
No, I think that's something weird that we've done. I mean, obviously, it's natural to us. I don't know why.
Like birds
That's
don't worship.
some
Like
I don't know of any other creature in nature or in the evolutionary history that has no. What do you think?
beavers don't worship dams? Do squirrels worship acorns?
We have no evidence that they have any rituals that they perform. Now, like blue jays, like you know what I'm saying? Like a blue jay knows that there are other blue jays watching out for where he hides his shit. So like he recognizes the agency of other birds around him, knowing
Yeah.
where he put his shit. So like there's you
It,
know
it start it, well, they're sentient, but they're not sapient.
yeah, sentient means feelings, feeling feelings. Sapient means wisdom.
Are ants sentient?
They can recognize themselves in the mirror. That's what I've been told anyway by people smarter than me.
So they're wait, are ants sapient? No, that's not what sapient. What did you say sapience was? Wisdom, just knowing
So I
things.
think the overall arcing category is conscious, which is just awareness,
Yeah.
right? Awareness of internal and external reality. That ant may have no awareness of internal reality, but it has this processing like
Hmm.
programmed DNA to be able to say this is me as an ant and this is another ant.
That's so
You know,
weird.
because how would they be able to walk in between each other and do anything if they couldn't tell between themselves and another ant? So it makes sense, but
Do animals
there's some.
grieve?
Yes, dogs grieve. I think they've
Yeah.
shown that whales grieve. I think whales can grieve. I'm sure dolphins can. They're pretty smart. We know that some primates and monkeys can grieve.
That makes
I don't
sense.
know. I don't know of anything else that can really though. It's going to be the higher brained mammals. You know, when I say higher brained, I just mean
Denser.
yeah, more like us, more like us.
Because rats have like similar brain structures to us, right?
Rats are very similar to us in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Hilariously enough, that's why they do testing on rats all the time.
Right.
Is because the way that they are made up, obviously not anatomically, but like I think their DNA is
I think
somewhere
it's
close.
their.
I can't. I don't know. I'm
Well,
not a biologist.
I think it's the behavior or their brain or something that they usually look
Yeah,
at. I don't know. What a slap in the face to the ape community to be compared to brains and like get medication based on tests done by fucking rats. Like,
it's because it's inhuman to test it on people.
uh,
That's why they do it on animals. But
and then we find out like rats are actually sapient.
yeah, so like you have the overarching consciousness, then you've got some kind of awareness level, then you have underneath that umbrella, I think you've got sentience, sapience, and I know there's a third one in there. Isn't there a third one?
Ultra sapients, like the super
Yeah,
smart
ultra
people.
sapience, like really super wisdom.
Yeah.
Uh, what is the one that says you have intelligence? I guess you could just say sentience, sapience, and intelligence. But
Intelligence quotient. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
I don't
so
know.
I'm pretty. Yeah. Anyway, that's enough of that.
Well, we are at the 1 hour mark, and
Yep.
that's what I'm keeping it at for all of these. So, man, that was heavy. I mean, that was a heavy conversation, no doubt. Um, I learned a lot. I never really. I mean, we've listened to music before, but I've never really asked you about it that much yet. And maybe that's just because I'm a bad friend, but I'm
No, you
glad that we at least got it out of the way now.
I'm
I
glad you
def
know.
Yeah, I learned a lot. Um, as always, I appreciate you. I mean, you were, as I mentioned in the beginning, my teacher, and you encouraged me to do the call-ins, have 6 hour call-in conversations every week.
With
I mean,
Nivik. Yeah.
Boy.
The old Nivik days. Anyway,
Wait, is Colin still a thing?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Because Nivik was, I'm pretty sure Nivik was going on it like till the very end.
Oh, he was. He was
Yeah.
getting on there and arguing with people like Lance and shit, dude. Oh my god.
Don Don said they also have ape testing. Yeah, that makes sense.
They do have ape testing, yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you like always. I love you, man.
Always.
And we will have another conversation at some point, maybe in the next month or so. So expect that. And we'll go from there. Peace.